Sun bleeds through the trees. John alone finds a clearing. His breath fogs in the cooling air. He sets down his heavy pack. He works quickly, pitching his tent as the light fades. The forest grows quiet around him. He unpacks his supplies, a sense of peace settling over him. John eats his dinner, a simple meal under the vast darkening sky. Darkness falls. The fire crackles, casting dancing shadows. John shivers, pulling his jacket tighter. A strange sound reaches him, a whisper carried on the wind. He dismisses it as the wind rustling leaves. He tries to ignore the feeling of being watched. He retreats into his tent, zipping it tight against the night. He lies down, the whispers returning, closer now. He sits up, heart pounding. The whispers are clearer. They seem to be coming from just outside his tent. He can't make out the words. Panic creeps up his spine. He unzips the tent slowly, peering into the darkness. He sees nothing, only the trees, their branches swaying in the night breeze. He shines his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. Still nothing. He retreats back into his tent, fear gripping him. The whispers grow louder, more insistent. He can almost make out words now, his name repeated over and over. John huddles in his sleeping bag, his breath coming in short gasps. He covers his ears, but he can still hear the whispers. They seem to be coming from all directions now. He is surrounded. The fire has died down. Shadows twist and turn in the darkness. He sees figures lurking at the edge of the woods, eyes glinting in the moonlight. Or is it just his imagination? He can't tell what's real anymore. His mind is playing tricks on him. The whispers are relentless, driving him to the edge. He feels a presence outside his tent. Something is watching him. He can't take it anymore. The oppressive silence of the forest, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves, has become unbearable. Every shadow seems to move, every sound amplified in the stillness of the night. His mind races with thoughts of what could be lurking just beyond the thin fabric of his tent. The whispers, those haunting whispers, have been growing louder, more insistent. They seem to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once, filling his head with a cacophony of fear and dread. He throws open the tent flap and runs. The cold night air hits him like a wall, but he doesn't care. He needs to get away, to escape the unseen terror that seems to be closing in on him. His breath comes in ragged gasps as he sprints through the darkness, his flashlight casting erratic beams of light that do little to pierce the gloom. He doesn't know where he's going, just away from the whispers. The trees loom like dark sentinels, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands trying to grab him. His heart pounds in his chest, each beat a drum of desperation. The forest floor is uneven, roots and rocks threatening to trip him with every step, but he pushes on, driven by a primal need to survive. He stumbles through the undergrowth, his heart pounding in his chest. The whispers are relentless, growing louder, more urgent. They seem to be inside his head now, a maddening chorus that drowns out all rational thought. He can feel the panic rising, threatening to overwhelm him, but he forces himself to keep moving. He can't stop. Not now, not when he's so close to escaping. He doesn't dare look back. The fear of what he might see is too great. He can almost feel the presence behind him, a malevolent force that drives him forward. His legs burn with the effort. His lungs scream for air, but he can't stop. Not until he's safe. Not until the whispers are gone. He can still hear the whispers following him, urging him on. They are a constant reminder of the danger he is in, a relentless push that keeps him moving. His mind is a whirlwind of fear and confusion, but one thought remains clear. He must keep running. He must escape. He bursts out of the tree line into an open meadow. The sudden openness is disorienting, but he doesn't stop. He can see the stars above, a stark contrast to the darkness of the forest. For a moment he feels a glimmer of hope, a sense that he might actually make it out of this nightmare. He collapses on the ground, gasping for breath. The whispers are still there, but they seem fainter now, more distant. He lies on the grass, staring up at the night sky, his body trembling with exhaustion and fear. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, he allows himself to hope that he might have escaped. But deep down, he knows the whispers will never truly leave him. They are a part of him now, a constant reminder of the terror he has faced. He looks back at the forest, his chest heaving. He expects to see something, a figure, a creature, anything. But there is nothing there, just the trees swaying gently in the breeze. The whispers have stopped. He is alone. He feels a wave of relief wash over him, followed by a chilling realization. He is completely alone, lost in the wilderness. He spends the rest of the night huddled in the open meadow, too terrified to return to the forest. The darkness around him feels alive, as if the shadows themselves are whispering secrets he cannot understand. Every rustle of the leaves, every distant howl sends shivers down his spine. He clutches his knees to his chest, trying to make himself as small as possible, hoping that whatever is out there will overlook him. The moonlight casts eerie shadows, making the trees look like twisted figures watching him from afar. He can feel his heart pounding in his chest, each beat echoing in the silence of the night. The meadow, which once seemed like a safe haven, now feels like a trap, with no walls to protect him from the unknown. As the sun rises, he slowly makes his way back to his campsite. The first light of dawn brings a semblance of safety, but the fear from the night still lingers. His steps are hesitant, each one a struggle against the urge to run. The meadow, bathed in the soft glow of morning, looks almost peaceful, but he knows better. The events of the night have left a mark on him, one that won't fade easily. He glances around, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows, but there's nothing. Just the quiet, serene landscape of the early morning. His tent is still there, untouched. It stands as a stark contrast to the turmoil he felt throughout the night. The sight of it brings a small measure of relief, but also a reminder of his vulnerability. He approaches it cautiously, half expecting to find something amiss, but everything is just as he left it. The stillness of the campsite feels almost surreal, as if the night's horrors were just a figment of his imagination. But he knows they were real, too real. But the whispers linger in his mind. They are like echoes, faint but persistent, refusing to be silenced. He can still hear them, those haunting voices that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. They speak in a language he cannot understand, yet their tone is unmistakable, one of warning, of danger. He tries to shake them off, but they cling to him, a constant reminder of the night's terror. He sits for a moment trying to gather his thoughts, but the whispers are relentless, gnawing at the edges of his sanity. He packs up his gear quickly, desperate to leave this place. Each movement is hurried, driven by an overwhelming need to escape. The once enjoyable task of packing up now feels like a race against time. He fumbles with the tent poles, his hands shaking, but he forces himself to stay focused. The sooner he can leave, the better. The whispers grow louder in his mind, urging him to hurry, to get away from this cursed place. He throws his belongings into his backpack haphazardly, not caring about the order, just wanting to be done. He hikes back the way he came, never once looking back. The forest, which once seemed so inviting, now feels like a maze of shadows and unseen threats. Each step takes him further from the whispers, but they still echo in his mind. He moves quickly, driven by a primal instinct to flee. The path ahead is clear, but his mind is clouded with the memories of the night. He knows he will never forget the whispers, nor the fear they instilled in him. As he finally reaches the edge of the forest, he takes a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. But the whispers remain, a haunting reminder of the night he will never forget. He never goes camping alone again. That night in the wilderness changed him forever. The solitude he once cherished turned into a haunting memory. The crackling of the campfire, which used to be a comforting sound, now only reminds him of the eerie silence that surrounded him. He remembers every detail vividly. The way the shadows danced around him, the cold breeze that sent shivers down his spine, and the unsettling feeling that he was not alone. The memory of that night haunts him. He often finds himself staring into the distance, lost in thought, replaying the events over and over in his mind. The fear he felt was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was a primal fear, one that gripped his very soul and refused to let go. He tries to rationalize it, to make sense of what happened, but the answers elude him. The chilling whispers, the feeling of being watched, the overwhelming terror. These sensations are etched into his memory. The forest, once a place of peace and tranquility, has become a source of dread. The trees, which used to provide shelter and comfort, now seem to hide unseen dangers. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sends his heart racing. He is left with more questions than answers. What was it that he experienced that night? Was it a figment of his imagination, a trick of the mind brought on by isolation and fear? Or was there something more to it, something beyond the realm of the known? He searches for clues, for any piece of evidence that might explain the inexplicable, but he finds nothing. What was it that he heard in the woods that night? The sounds were unlike anything he had ever heard before. They were faint, almost imperceptible, but they carried a weight, a sense of foreboding that he could not ignore. He strained his ears, trying to make out the source, but it remained elusive, just beyond the edge of his perception. Was it all in his head? The more he thinks about it, the more he doubts his own sanity. He questions his memories, wondering if they have been distorted by fear and time. He tries to convince himself that it was nothing, that he was simply imagining things, but the doubt lingers. It gnaws at him, a constant reminder of that night. Or was there something truly sinister lurking in the darkness? The thought sends chills down his spine. He cannot shake the feeling that there was something out there, something watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. The darkness seems to hold secrets, secrets that he is not meant to uncover. He feels a sense of dread whenever he thinks about it, a fear that he cannot explain. He will never know for sure. The answers remain just out of reach, tantalizingly close, yet forever unattainable. He has come to accept that he may never understand what happened that night. It is a mystery that will haunt him for the rest of his life, a question that will never be answered, and that is the most terrifying thought of all, the unknown, the uncertainty, the fear of what might be lurking in the shadows. It is a fear that he carries with him, a fear that will never truly go away. He has learned to live with it, but it has changed him. He is no longer the same person he was before that night. The wilderness, once a place of solace, has become a place of nightmare.